here we go. So we covered all of this. Awesome, awesome, cool. All right. So here's the thing, guys. You know how like there is this trend among police departments to be like, hey, well, first off, Miss Mama 55, thank you so goddamn much for hitting that follow button. It's been ages since someone hit that follow button. It has, in fact, been almost an hour since someone hit a follow button. I encourage you, if you're enjoying this content, hit that follow button, please. Um, but a typical narrative we see from police departments is that they need the best gear. They need the heaviest duty tactical equipment. They need fucking military fatigues. It's basically a siege outside, and they're under attack every time they go out. You know, they're taking the bullets. They're on the front lines fighting an insurgent war against the poor. The issue with this is that giving police military equipment does not actually make them better at their jobs. And in fact, that's not just me saying that as like someone who doesn't know shit about shit. This is me talking about and like the actual result of two new independent studies, okay? Look at it, it's science, people. Providing police with military gear does not reduce crime or protect officers. From two different studies. Two independent studies have drawn the same conclusions. Billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Yeah, Arias, definitely very curious how the Proud Boys, open white nationalists, or Western chauvinists, noted hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, don't have pepper spray used against them, don't have tear gas used against them, don't have pepper balls being peppered at them, you know? All right, two independent studies have drawn the same conclusions. Billions of dollars in surplus military equipment, including armored vehicles and high-powered rifles that have been transferred by the federal government to thousands of U.S. police departments, have not reduced crime or increased officer safety. So, let's stop. Let's stop right there for like a split second. The entire premise of putting billions of dollars of military gear into the hands of police officers is typically boiled down to the idea that it makes them safer, that it makes them more effective at their jobs, that it, protects officer lives, that it, basically is going to scare off criminals. They'll see the big military tank rolling down the street. They'll think twice about robbing that jewelry store, it's some kind of like perverse marketing scheme by like these military contractors who are keen on selling the government even more excess military equipment that they don't need. At a certain point, the military doesn't need more tanks to go rust in the desert. So then why are we spending billions of dollars on the police to have this equipment? Why are we doing this? Other than the obvious capitalist incentive that military contractors have. Let's find out. Let's read what these studies found. Studies come amidst a national debate over whether to defund law enforcement agencies. Well, golly gee, it seems like maybe the findings of two different independent studies showing that billions of dollars are being wasted arming police departments with ever deadlier equipment. Maybe this is something to stop doing. We could, in fact, cut their budgets by billions of dollars and they would still be as safe as they are now. They would still be as effective as they are now. Until our world turns into like GTA 5 world, okay? All right. which sparked by coast-to-coast protest over police brutality and a string of fatal police-involved encounters with black people. The two peer-reviewed studies, one by a researcher at the University of Michigan and the other by scholars at the Emory College of Arts and Sciences and Louisiana State University, were both published on Monday in the London-based journal Nature of Human Behavior. Now, I'm going to stop this right here in case there are any conservatives watching. Conservatives, when scientific findings and research studies get published in a journal, especially like a reputable journal that has a long history and strict practices, this means that largely it has been accepted and it is something that has good data behind it. Sometimes this is something that can be inaccurate. In very rare cases does it get overturned, What's up, Crimson Center? Hope you're having a great evening. So when this study is published in London-based journal Nature of Human Behavior, or when these two studies, that means that they have fairly good factual findings, fairly good data behind them. They've been gone over by other researchers in the field. They've been found to be pretty airtight. The studies allege that the Trump administration used unreliable data to justify a 2017 executive order that bolstered the Pentagon giveaway program by rolling back restrictions on the types of military equipment that can be distributed to police departments. I think far too frequently we see public policy enacted on a hunch about what it will do, and we don't spend much effort evaluating whether they work as intended. This is one very glaring example. Tom Clark, co-author of one of the studies and professor of political science at Emory, told ABC News. The collective assessment of the two studies is that the distribution of military equipment to law enforcement doesn't seem to affect one way or the other. It doesn't reduce crime. It doesn't lead to an increase in crime. It doesn't seem to reduce officer injuries. It doesn't seem to increase them either. Federal programs scrutinized here. Let's see. Just so y'all don't misgender me, mine are Obama/microwave. All right. I've heard people claim that it saves money too, because otherwise all that billions of military tech just goes to waste, when in reality it just means the police need to keep a ton more in training. True. I mean, like, part of the issue here is that, like, A, you need to spend more money training police how to use all this military equipment, and B, like, the people who are in charge of deploying that kind of military equipment in the military aren't in charge of the police. So the people who are in charge of the police don't know how to deploy military-grade equipment. On top of that, there's the idea that, like, again, if it's not helping or hurting in either of these respects, then why are we spending all this money? Because it's just going to waste anyway. However, I am going to caution you, because right now, this is pretty interesting. Also, anarcho-platonist, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. Part of the issue here is that this study is just looking at officer injuries and reducing crime. I would be very curious to see how much it helps with suspect deaths or injuries. Does it increase that? Does it decrease that? Maybe we'll find out as we go deeper here. Okay. The studies scrutinized the Federal Law Enforcement Support Office, LESO, 1033 program, which was established in 1990 and originally provided military surplus to be used in drug enforcement by federal and state law enforcement agencies. Okay, so again, the original purpose of this was to continue the drug war. Let's just fucking end the drug war. Then we don't have to bother with any of this at all. Let's see. The program was expanded in 1997 to include all law enforcement agencies, with preference given to those with anti-drug or anti-terrorism programs. Critics have claimed the program, which is administered by the Federal Defense Logistics Agency, promotes a warrior mentality over a guardian approach to policing, but law enforcement officials say the program provides equipment most police departments can't afford on their own. Okay, but why do they need this equipment, though? Like, if it's not reducing crime and it's not reducing officer injuries, then what is it for? Michelle McCaskill, a spokesperson for the DLA, told NBC News that Congress authorized the 1033 program to make excess military equipment available to law enforcement as a way to maximize tax dollars, give law enforcement agencies additional support in counter-drug and counter-terrorism operations, and enhance public safety. It doesn't seem to be doing this, though. It doesn't seem to be doing any of this. DLA is responsible for the management of the program and continues to make improvements, blah, 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 blah. Okay, 1033 program is just one of several ways law enforcement agencies can acquire surplus military equipment. 2015, Obama administration rolled back the 1033 program through an executive order that recalled certain items such as bayonets and tracked armed vehicles and grenade launchers from police departments. Why the fuck did they need bayonets? That just makes me think of that. Honestly, this just makes me think of the Kent State, like the images from Kent State. The order was prompted by the 2014 riots in Ferguson, Missouri, over the fatal police shooting of a black teenager, Michael Brown, in which police responded with armored vehicles, military-style weapons, and contingents of officers decked out in combat gear. Gee whiz, how times have changed. This never happens anymore. Good golly. Oh yeah, bayonets sound better than grenade launchers, definitely. But I guess that shows where my head's at. Like the grenade launchers I'm thinking are probably like tear gas grenades, but now that you bring that up, yeah, it's probably like actual fucking grenades. Or like explosive grenades. There we go. Trump administration enacted a new executive order in 2017 that did away with the Obama reforms. Then Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the change during a meeting with members of the Fraternal Order of Police, saying, "We will not put superficial concerns over public safety." Again, apparently this is not improving public safety at all. You can get that life-saving gear that isn't saving your life. That you need to do your job and send a strong message that we will not allow criminal activity, violence, and lawlessness to become the new normal. And again, guys, we should be able to talk about these issues without going into like this weird place of like feelings. Because I understand, maybe you're out there, you're watching this, you're a police officer, you're a conservative, you're like, man, I really want my police to have the best equipment. I wanna go out with the best equipment too, you know? But the issue is, if the data isn't backing up that this equipment is actually making you safer, if the data isn't showing that it's actually, you know, reducing crime in any way, then we shouldn't have a program like this that costs taxpayers billions of dollars. Again, and I've said this before on different issues, I'll say it again. Individual personal feelings should not supersede data when it comes to national policy that affects hundreds of millions of people. Okay? We need to, you know, to co-opt that famous phrase. When it comes to policy, we need to prioritize facts over feelings. And if the case with these studies are that, you know, the facts are this military hardware isn't making anybody safer, isn't reducing crime at all, well then we should get rid of this program. Kenneth Lowand, an assistant political science professor at the University of Michigan and author of one of the new studies titled Police Demilitarization and Violent Crime, said his research showed the Trump administration based its order on flawed studies that claimed military-grade equipment police departments received through the program reduced crime. My biggest concern is that those claims have been made by prior studies. They were explicitly suggested that by giving military hardware to police departments, it would deter criminals from committing crimes. Loan told ABC News, it's just not an accurate record. It was never designed to be used to test that hypothesis. Equipment used or unused or malfunctioned. Lowen said that he estimated 3.8 million archived inventory records for this study. Oh, he examined these records and found that much of the equipment sat unused, malfunctioned, or was given away to other law enforcement agencies and no longer properly accounted for. So guys, what we're talking about with this is that we have missing military-grade gear that we have no idea where it fucking went. These police departments have no idea where this is. We have no way of finding it. We have absolutely no way of tracking where these grenade launchers went, where some of these tanks might have gone, where some of these like high-powered weapons might be. You know, in fact, like this is one of the worst aspects of this story, right? Also, Kyle Dyrock, thank you very much for the follow. It was lovely talking with you last night as well. So like I mean, like you can imagine it might have gone to one of those police departments. What if it's not there? What if that equipment didn't make it to the police department? What if it's sitting in somebody's house? What if it's being sold on the street for extra cash? We have no idea. We have no idea. And this program is completely unaccounting for these things. When you look at these types of police departments' crime rates over time, you don't see any differences, Loan said. He said that after the Obama administration rolled back the 1033 program, which he described as mostly symbolic, there was no evidence it impacted the crime rate. So if this equipment was playing a big role in reducing crime in those areas, you would have expected to see crime go up, and it just didn't, Loan said. Clark said his team's study found that due to lax record keeping, it was difficult to determine how much of the equipment was actually being used by police departments. Our findings suggest this program, which is roughly 30 years old, isn't actually contributing to public safety. However, Clark said other equipment police departments receive from the military, like furniture, helmets, boots, and backpacks, are heavily used by law enforcement agencies. As the debate over defunding police agencies goes on, Lowen suggested that common ground can be found by people on both sides of the issue of supplying military equipment to law enforcement agencies. And guess what, guys? Hot take. I'm fine if the Defense Department is supplying furniture, helmets, boots, backpacks, Kevlar vests. These are things that I'm perfectly fine accepting that like the government is going to hand out to police departments. No problem with these things whatsoever. Good night, Linky. You get some good sleep, okay? Get some good rest. No problem with that whatsoever. My issue is with the high-end, destructive, potentially deadly equipment that is being unaccounted for by these police departments. I think the program does a lot of good, but there ought to be some kind of limits, and there are reasonable limits that I could understand that should exist. Let's see. Police officials say program helps. Dismissive, skeptical, and dismissive of dual studies. Wow, I'm not surprised. Also, this is horrible misspelling here. This is just a symptom of the larger defund the police movement, and this has turned political. Retired police sergeant Betsy Bratner Smith, a spokesperson for the nonprofit National Police Association, which educates the public on policing in America, told ABC News. Obama took it away, Trump gave it back, and now we'll probably see Biden take it away again so they can say, look, I took this away from the big bad police. How is this an argument against the data in the studies, though? Smith, who has also been a police trainer for nearly 30 years, conceded that some of the military equipment is used infrequently, but added, "When we need them, we need them." She said she is aware of instances where the equipment has helped save the lives of both officers and civilians, including when military-issued armored vehicles have been used in rescue operations or to safely positioned hostage negotiators close to an active, dangerous scene. She noted that nearly 300 U.S. law enforcement officers have been injured or killed in shootings, including several ambushes this year alone. "We are very often outgunned. Our body armor is kind of minimalistic because it's something we have to wear 12 hours a day." Smith said she fears that if the 1033 program is abolished or severely curtailed, it's not going to be the police who are going to get hurt, it's going to be citizens. By whom? The police? Wait, why would getting rid of this program hurt citizens? Wait, based on what? What? I guess nowhere in this entire discussion was it talked about like civilian harm this equipment does. Patrick Yos, national president of the Fraternal Order of Police, the world's largest organization of sworn law enforcement officers, also slammed the two studies as convoluted logic. It has never been the contention that the FOP that surplus military equipment prevents crime, but rather that such equipment plays a critical role in protecting police officers and citizens in life-threatening situations, such as active shooters at large, civil disturbances, and natural disasters. Arguments that police officers in a deadly force situation are not safer in an armored vehicle is at variance with common sense. Again, I don't give a shit what your common sense says. What I give a shit about is what the data says. And apparently, the data indicates that actually you are no safer. Largely, police are as safe in a normal car in these situations when using their common sense as they are when they're in an armored vehicle. There's apparently no significant difference between officer injuries when they don't have these things and officer injuries when they do have these things. The police need to develop a RoboCop. I feel like if the police developed a RoboCop, it would just shoot all black people. And I say that both as how the police a joke on how the police actually function right now, and also as a joke about how AI functions right now, because AI is hella racist, and you can see it on Twitter right now, because Twitter has a nice AI algorithm that focuses the image previews on someone's face. If it can detect a face, the image preview shifts up to the face. But it doesn't do it for black people because it can't detect a black face. Or maybe RoboCop would only shoot white people. Maybe the police's version of RoboCop wouldn't actually be able to detect black people. I don't know. I don't know. This is hot topic. I'm gonna jump out of it. Okay, we're just gonna move on. Sadly, our profession is besieged with demands that we prove the negative, even when the negative premise is flawed. But again, this isn't police proving a negative. We have data from before this was repealed, and we have data from after it was repealed, and there's no difference. So you have to account for why is there no difference between these two repeals. We have all this data. Oh yeah, Serious Twitch. It also works for this is also something that happens with like light sensors, and it's wild. This is why, by the way, when people are like, "Oh, a computer can't be racist. Don't be silly." It's actually not true, because the people who are predominantly programming these things and making these AI tend to be white people, and so they program them and calibrate them for white people without putting thought into people of different skin tones. So it's an element of how your perspective as a single individual is limited if you don't have input from other groups of people, other diverse groups of people. And this is why it's not like some liberal cringe fantasy for to have diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion actually make society like much better. It makes society work for different groups of people, and that's a good thing. You want society to work for black people, and you want society to work for white people. You want society to work for indigenous people and Hispanic people and all kinds of different people, okay? You want it to work for trans people and gay people and straight people, all kinds of people. All right? So, anyway, long story short on this one, again, military gear does not reduce crime or protect police officers. Here, let's take a quick gander at this study. I'm not going to pretend I'm a scientist, so I'm not going to like speed read through this article, like this entire fucking thing. But we will go to the conclusions because, hey, why not? Results. Okay. The scale of error in prior research is substantial. I plot this error in supplementary figs 1 and 2, recovered on the basis of a procedure. Whoa, there we go. Described in detail in the methods section, in the median 3-month period, more than 15,000 controlled items vanished from agency inventories. What? What? Sorry, Chat, am I reading this right when I read this and it says in the median 3-month period, more than 15,000 controlled items vanish? So, like, every 3 months, around 15,000 items just vanish from police inventories? And by items, we're talking about, like, military hardware? Most of the variation in militarization during this period is due to these previously unobserved sources. Due to secular changes in defense procurement patterns after the height of the Iraq War, which influences the supply of equipment, the preceding 5 to 7 years are likely similar. A striking illustration of this pattern is AR-15 style 5.56 millimeter rifles, the most common weapon requested by agencies and the item on which some estimates the effect of militarization. Wild. On crime are based. Between 2016 and 2019, all 5.56 millimeter assault rifle variation is due to either the transfer of those already circulating among LIAs or the disposal of weapons that have fallen out of use. As Figure 1 suggests, 5-year rates of attrition for other weapons and armored vehicles are similar. Importantly, this approach also reproduces known patterns on the basis of top-down policy changes. The first quarter of 2015 sees little variation as it underwent review by a federal task force. Aside from the end of 2017, transfer and attrition track one another, and transfers never outnumber attrition, suggesting that many items are returned to state coordinators for use in other departments. This suggests that the strategy of recovering this variation is valid. Well, that's good. Most problematically, attrition appears to be correlated with policing outcomes, even after accounting for time invariant differences across LIAs. Specifically, Supplementary Table 3 supports coefficients from two... Alright, I'm too dumb to understand a lot of this, okay? Suggest detectable negative associations between attrition and poor policing outcomes, including murder and assaults against police officers with injury. Thus, even the relatively short time series from the contemporary period, for example, March 2015 to March 2020, suggests that increases in crime are associated with whether LIAs return or destroy equipment, potentially biasing in favor of the positive relationships uncovered by past research. This also suggests that the measurement error in prior research is systematic, and thus instrumental variable approaches cannot correct for it. Interesting. Let's see. It is also important to note that these associations do not imply that there are studies finding reductions in crime as a result of property distribution, are underestimating the magnitude of its impact. In this case, transfers also occur and are difficult to model. In addition, previous studies generally select some subset of complete weapons and equipment, which may have different attrition patterns in the periods of study. This poses another research challenge not discussed. I think that basically, let's see, thus, existing estimates of the effects of militarization on the basis of these data are severely flawed. Moreover, the DLA did not retain the active inventories for the first data release in 2014. This means that accurate time series records of military equipment on hand can only be obtained with another source, or through another source. The records of LEAs themselves, which are highly decentralized and may be missing. This necessitates an alternative means of estimating the effects of militarization over the contemporary period for which more accurate records exist. So the TLDR on this is essentially that essentially this part of the results is finding that the previous data that were that was suggested, like basically that was like, oh yeah, this lowers crime, is not reliable based on all of these differing factors. Okay, so basically, the older methods are flawed. We need to come up with our own newer methods. So we're going to look at violent crime and officer safety. To assess the claims of policymakers and past research, I estimate the effects of demilitarization in panels of demilitarized and matched agencies. As I describe in more detail in the methods section, I present estimates from generalized difference in difference models with intercept shifts, agency and time. Diagnostic checks suggest that the demilitarized and matched agencies have similar pre-treatment trends in crime. This accounts for fixed features of LEAs and their jurisdictions that influence crime. Pre-processing to comparable sets reduces model dependence. Estimates 2015 demilitarization on violent crime, officer safety, leveraging matched sets. Let's see. Estimates for the effect of demilitarization on murder and manslaughter allow us to statistically reject effect sizes of more than plus or minus 5 percentage points. Estimates for effects on the incidence of robbery are not distinguishable from zero at conventional levels. Moreover, these effects are highly uncertain, even if conventionally distinguishable from zero. Under some model specifications and robustness checks reported in the supplementary information, estimates for officer safety are near zero and are more consistent. Officer deaths are sufficiently rare that the effects are near, or in some specifications, at zero. These allow us to reject... Wow, okay, so basically, this study's like, yeah, basically officer deaths as a result for not having militarized hardware is essentially a difference of zero. So if they don't have this equipment from these militarization programs, it has no effect on whether or not they're likely to die. Almost none. This substantive interpretation of the findings is consistent across numerous robustness checks. Most obviously, the results are stable across different specifications of comparable departments. Estimated effects among the inclusive, baseline, and restrictive samples are very similar, and narrowing or broadening the inclusion criteria is not associated with any consistent effect pattern. Let's see, I described each of these detailed, adopted several approaches. Estimates depending on the length of time. A narrower study period also lowers the chance that treated agencies will have remilitarized via some unobserved means. In the contemporary period, for example, Homeland Security grants enable LEAs to purchase weapons and equipment. There is no centralized record of what is acquired through these grants. That's how is there no centralized record of these purchases? That's wild. In addition, many grants pass through other jurisdictions, that is, counties or states, and are then used for purchases at the municipal level. This is a persistent challenge for estimating the effects of weapons and equipment generally, which further suggests that examining the impact of top-down policy change is more credible. In addition, for this reason, estimates that include a longer post-treatment time horizon should be treated with more skepticism. All right. In summary, there is little evidence from these data that the 2015 demilitarization of police departments participating in the 1033 program had substantially significant impacts on violent crime or officer safety. All right. Over the last 3 decades, local LEAs in the U.S. have acquired and routinized Routinized. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Routinized. The use of weapons, equipment, and tactics previously exclusive to the military. Weapons and equipment acquisition has been subsidized by federal authorities, but fundamental limitations in record keeping about these transfers have rendered studies about their effects not credible. This has not, however, limited their reach and potential influence among policymakers. This study analyzed archived federal inventory records to gauge the reliability of this work while providing the academic paper. No, the academic paper, like, we're actually holding pretty steady at around 50 viewers. This is pretty good, actually. Guys, if are we in the middle of push for partner? Is this what we're in the middle of right now? Because as soon as we're getting these numbers up there, you know, I'm gonna be turning on that real charisma charm. That's when I'm really popping out this bunny outfit. Okay. Anyway, I find that most changes in police militarization in the contemporary period are the result of weapons and equipment already in circulation, and that attrition of these weapons is common. This is highly problematic for studies that estimate the effects of militarization on any outcome using data series that include years before 2014. In addition, this suggests that the secular trend in militarization through this program have leveled off, possibly due to the drawn down of U.S. military personnel abroad. Drawdown? I'm not sure what that means. Notably, however, there is a non-negotiable increase in new distributions in late 2019 and early 2020. Importantly, this means that the operative question facing interested parties is the potential effects of policy interventions that demilitarize departments with already acquired equipment. This study examined the only known effort to do so, which was implemented by the Obama administration in 2015. Contrary to the claims of the administration's critics, this policy reduced the level of militarization in select agencies. Suggests that demilitarization by presidential fiat is indeed feasible for the set of the 1033 program participants. Finally, I find little to no evidence that demilitarization has any impact on violent crime or officer safety. Put differently, contrary to the claims of those who support the transfer of equipment, these data do not support the conclusion that militarization saves lives or that demilitarization risks them. There are important limitations to this study, and the conclusions that can be drawn from it. The demilitarization examined was limited to several categories of items, and several hundred of the roughly 6,000 departments participating in the 1033 program, only accounting for less than half of the LEAs in the United States. This means we cannot confidently state that this study provides evidence against small, or for some outcomes, moderately sized effects. This is also a substantive scope condition for the present study. It examines the effects of recalling specific types of weapons and equipment for participants of a particular government program, not demilitarization in general. These limitations notwithstanding, this study provides valuable evidence for those considering reform. Numerous comparable weapons, vehicles, and types of equipment remain in circulation today. In companion with evidence about reputational costs of militarization, these findings suggest that the downside risks of demilitarization would not be detectable for similar policy interventions. Boom, baby! So the paper says that the police aren't safer and that citizens aren't safer by more, better weapons. True. But it also does point out that some of this equipment is like backpacks and furniture and helmets and stuff. I'm totally fine if the federal government is making sure every police department has as many helmets as they need, as many backpacks as they need, as many Kevlar vests as they need, as much furniture as they need, I guess. But like, yeah, maybe the government doesn't need to be giving them military weapons. Maybe the government doesn't need to be giving them, armored vehicles. I don't think that these people are going into fucking war zones, okay? So, yeah, this is, I think this is a pretty decent study here. Just from what we've seen, okay? I'll post it in chat. You can look over it if you'd like. Oh gosh, that was the worst link I've ever seen. I'm so sorry, chat. I'm so sorry. Oh, good night, Ashley. You get some good sleep. Everyone thank Ashley for inventing the internet, because she did, and she's awesome. So thank her for the internet, please.